Hey, and welcome back to the Playground Talks podcast. I'm Tania Friat, your host and certified parent coach, and I'm here to help you expand your parenting toolbox so you can effectively tackle the day-to-day challenges with your kiddos, feel confident and joy in your parenting journey. And so today we have Dr. Marisel Schweitzer, a parenting educator with a 22 years experience in the field of education. She actually began her career as a teacher of bilingual and special education students, and later she earned her Doctor of Education degree from the Northern Arizona University. And so in the previous episode, we discussed what are the external and internal motivation you might use as you parent your kiddos. If you haven't gotten the chance, please go ahead and listen. Check that out. And today we dived into how to foster this positive learning environment and internal motivation for studying. We also discussed what are the most important things that you can do. What are the routine and habits you can establish in your house even before the child gets into school in order for them to be academically successful. And lastly, Dr. Marisel shared with us her book. She has a very empowering book for both parents and kiddos. So let's get started. Hey, Marisel, I'm so glad to have you here. We've been friends forever on Instagram, and finally we get to meet each other here and record this episode around how do you encourage your child to have those learning habits. So thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you so much, Tammy. It's been a pleasure. I've been your fan for a while, and I think we like each other's content. And I feel that right now what I'm doing, or what we are doing, is just leaving this society better than the way we found it. So it's such a great thing that helped me go to sleep like happy.
Yeah, I totally resonate with what you said, that it feels like when you contribute and trying to do something positive, it makes you feel better, and you hope more people are getting the content that empower them rather than doing the opposite.
Exactly.
So I actually want to start by asking you, since the last two podcast episode, I was talking about internal motivations and external motivations. What are the specific habits or routines that parents can establish at their home to foster this positive learning environment and to foster this internal motivation for studying?
Routines are amazing. Like, it's something that we need to start from day zero with children. And sometimes we feel like from the first day that you have your baby in your hands, you need to start with routines, because routines helps them feel secure and have some kind of control. So when we think about routines, we think only about going to bed, the time that you are going to eat, or taking a bath. But routines is probably more than that. It's a designated place where you're going to study, a designated place where you're going to play. It is the routine or ritual to go to bed that should include, for example, reading every night. So routines are so important, so important. It gives kids sense of balance, of security, of self-assurance. And, also it helps you to decrease the times that you have to say no, because kids know that before dinner, they're going to go to play and then they need to clean up. So you don't have to say, no, you cannot play anymore, because they know it's time to clean up. And then you can say, like, 5 minutes before, in 5 minutes, it's going to be time for you to clean up. And then we're going to go and for a shower or whatever. So it is very important. It gives them sense of control. It gives them sense that they know what they can predict what is going to happen. And that is super important when they go to school. It will prepare them to go to school, because that's the way school goes, This is the time to have breakfast, then we have this, then we have that, and helps them with transitions also. So it is super, super, super important.
So I get that. First of all, it's about setting the expectations. So once they know what to expect, there is a less challenging moment for the parents. And I also thought that some kids are more strong-willed And so they are having a hard time to have someone else telling them what to do. But once they practice that that's what's going to happen, that's what's happening in their house setting, then they can practice the same things that's going to happen in school. They will not be surprised that the teacher all of a sudden have so many requirements in terms of time and organization skills, and
Exactly.
etc.
And you know what? For example, with the routines before going to bed, if you start that from day zero, it's going to help the kids to sleep through the night. So once they know that they're going to have, for example, their milk, and then you're going to go through a book, put them to sleep. If they wake up, they know how to fall asleep again. So it is super, super important.
Yeah, it added to their sleeping healthy routine. Yeah, I totally get that. So I wanted to ask you if you have any specific recommendation in regard to how to prepare kiddos to transition from the daycare, private daycare, to kindergarten.
Readiness to kindergarten also starts from day zero. The 90% of the kid's brain develops between 0 to 5. So we need to start preparing kids for kindergarten from day zero. And we need to keep in mind that every child is unique and every child develops at their own pace. But it is found that about 60% of the kids reach their milestones at the same time. So something that we need to keep in mind to make sure that kids are ready for kindergarten is making sure that they are reaching their milestones from day zero, from actually not day zero, but 2 months old. So we need to keep that in mind and making sure that they're reaching their milestone in the 4 areas: the motor, cognitive, social emotional, and language and communication. So if we see that something is going on, like your child's, let's say that, for example, my son, he had some problems with the fine motor. If you recognize that something is happening when they are 3, then you can find the appropriate intervention or even do things at home that would help him be ready for kindergarten, not when it is too late. So once you making sure that you're tracking those milestones and providing rich opportunities for the kids to be ready, if you notice that something is going on, then we need to find appropriate help to make sure that you are fostering that. And let me say that something, one in the United States, 1 out of every 6 kids usually have a developmental delay, 1 or more. So if you have 3 kids, you have a big possibility that something could happen, you know?
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. I think the number raised a lot in the past 20 years. Like it used to be, I know on the autism spectrum, it used to be 1 to 1,000, and now it's like 1 out of 54. So that's crazy.
But I feel it's probably because now we have better ways to diagnose that, to identify the disabilities. Probably before we didn't.
Yeah.
That's my thinking. The other thing that I would like to say is that we don't need to rush kids into reaching the milestones. For example, the topic of my dissertation was about parents' belief about kindergarten readiness. And in my conversations with parents, I used to hear them saying they need to learn their letters, they need to know their letters. Probably they don't have to know their letters before they go to kindergarten, but they need what we call print awareness. They need to know what a book is. They need to know that in a book, here's the title. This is the name of the book, that the book has pages, that we read in this direction, that sentences convey meaning, that words are made of letters. That is what they need more than really knowing the letters and the sounds. So we don't have to rush them, but we need to make sure that they are in that rich environment that is going to help them be ready for kindergarten.
Yeah, I feel like some parents and educators like pushing the kids to know the letters and knowing what sounds it makes, and then the other parts who's more into let's do play-based learning. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I feel like it's two different approach towards when kids should be learning and knowing to read and write. But I want to move on and ask you, so based on your background as a special education teacher, what are some signs that a child might show? And this will be an indication for academically challenging for this child.
I also work with family and community engagement, and our focus is to make sure that parents are involved in their children's education. And parents need to understand that they need to be partners with the school. They need to be in constant communication with the teachers. One of the things that most of the teachers usually complain about is that I don't know how to contact my parents. They fill out that card and then since kindergarten, and then they forget that they changed the number, they changed their, I don't know, address. And it's really hard for these teachers to contact the parents. So from day one, make sure that you give the teacher your contact information. What is the best way for the teacher to reach you? Is text, is email, it is class dojo, whatever. But have that constant communication because the teacher is the one that is going to know what is happening in the classroom. Now, at home, there are things that you can see or you have to be aware of. One is lack of interest. If the child is not happy about going to school, that could be one sign that something is going on. Probably they don't like school or they don't want to go to school because they are not performing well. You know, the other kids are reading and they're not reading. So something is happening, like what we call avoidance behavior. Like I have a stomach ache, my head hurts, like something is happening that makes me not wanting to go to school, or I'm feeling bad at school and then they need to call you from school to pick up your child. So things like that. For example, another one is, which is very important, is difficulty following the directions. And that is, for me, a sign of attention deficit disorder, not hyperactive. Like there are kids that have attention deficit disorder without being hyperactive. So if you give your child directions, like 2 or 3 directions, and he's 6 or let's say 8, and he cannot follow, probably there is something going on. Limited progress, and you will know that from the teacher or like from report cards. But sometimes report cards have so much information that is really difficult for parents to understand. And behavioral changes like frustration, or you see your child being sad or aggressive, those are things that can tell you that probably there's something going on at school. If the teacher is calling you every day that the child is misbehaving, probably there is something going on. I always say there is a story behind every misbehavior. So we
Yeah,
need to figure it out. What's the story? What is going on?
it's all about the child trying to communicate that something isn't
Mm-hmm.
working for him. Yeah, I totally get that. And so you mentioned that there are milestones that a parent might want to follow even before the kids is entering school. Do you have any resource you may share with us, or we will attach to the show notes so parents can have it handy?
Well, in my Instagram page, there is an ebook. It's free, and it talks about some of the milestones for social emotional development. But if they request, I can send them the rest. However, the CDC has a page and an app that is free that they can download, and then they can do the checklist and figure it out if their child is where they are supposed to be. And then it tells you if what are the areas that needs more help.
Well, that's great. And we'll attach your Instagram and the CDC to the show notes so whoever wants can check it out. And I remember that going to the doctor, like this yearly routine checkup, I remember we always had to go through those milestones. And now I am understanding how important it is. So I encourage, as we talk about it for the parents, just don't mark it without paying attention, but really think about it, contemplate on that. So if something is not working for your child, you can start early intervention, and you probably can elaborate about that much more than I do, that the earlier you start the intervention, the better it is for your child.
And you know what? it is super easy. Sometimes we feel that, we don't like to expose our pain, and not seeing that your child is not developing cause pain. But it is very easy most of the times to fix what is going on. If, for example, I have a case of a girl, and this was happened during the pandemic. So probably because of isolation, she was not speaking. And the doctor asked mom, how many words is she speaking? And she said, I don't know, probably at that time it was 3 or 4, and she was already 3. So they did this evaluation. She qualified to receive some intervention. The intervention was online with mom, and this person helped mom understand how to help her child, like be better and increase the language. And in less than 1 year, she was okay. And now she can stop talking. So it is easy. Most of the time, the developmental delays are easy to, I don't like the word fix, but they're easy to help, and we just need to know what is going on and get some help.
Yeah, to support the child. Wow, that's amazing. I remember because I had a speech and language pathologist, and so I remember the 2 years milestones is 50 words, and so once the parent is intentional about that, he can really support the child by reading books and asking the child to name. And the parent has a huge role, and he can impact a lot his child development once he knows what's the milestones and what he needs to work on. So that's a great tip. Do you have any other tips that you can give parents who are concerned about their child academic progress?
Yes, there is a book that I love. It's called Every Child a Super Reader. And it gives parents ideas of things that they can do at home. The advice that I would give to the parents is 3 things. Read, read, read. It is super important, and I cannot emphasize how important it is. But some of the things that they say, and I have it here handy because I really wanted to talk to you about that. It says children need a safe and supportive reading environment, like a corner with books where they know that they can get their books and read their books. You don't need to spend that much money buying books. They can go to the public library and get some books. It says dedicate time for their child to read for pleasure. Like make sure that at night you are having that routine, that ritual where you are reading books for them. They can read the same book many times. And every time you read a book, you can talk about the different things that are going on in the book, like make connections, like, oh, do you know these cars? This car is orange. We have blah, blah, blah. Our car is red, making sure that you're talking and making connections with the book. Make sure that you value and honor your child's interest. Like my youngest son, the only thing that he wanted to read was Archie. And I was like, you know what, Archie, we will read Archie. That's it. And until he changed his interest, but we cannot force them to read something that does not interest them. And the other thing that it is super important is to be a reading model. If they see people reading at home, they're going to want to read. So make sure that you are a good model for your child. That reading is going to take them to places they probably will not be able to go. So reading is amazing. And there was a research, it was called the 30 million words, that talks about how the amount of words that kids hear makes a difference in their progress when they go to school. So kids from families that probably don't have this in place, that don't have this rich environment, probably hear less words than the other kids, and that increases their vocabulary. We cannot provide a rich vocabulary to our kids if we just talk to them. There are words that are going to be in the books, and we need to make sure that we include those.
So I'm hearing that one of your most important tips around fostering curiosity and learning environment is to have books accessible for the kids and to make this safe environment and to model for the child that you also take a book and enjoy your time reading. So I love that. I really love that. And speaking of books, you wrote a book, and I would love to hear something about it because I read it, but I think the listeners didn't. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's this one.
Yeah,
And
so what's the name of the book, and tell us what's the idea behind the book?
my book is The Bravest Kid. And, I am a special education teacher. And one of the things that was very difficult for me was to give the parents the news that their child had a disability, because it was really hard for the parents to learn that.
Maybe to accept that?
Yeah, and get that news is when they tell you your child has autism, or your child has a learning disability, or all of the disabilities that we have. So Ricardo is the son of one of my best friends, and he had an accident in Venezuela. And because of the accident, he needed to use a wheelchair. He got paralyzed. So when I learned that, it makes me so sad, because I thought about his future, and I thought that he was not going to be happy anymore. His future was done, and he was a kid. But he taught us that it can be different. He overcome that. He's still in a wheelchair, but he learned to be independent. He worked so hard. He loved basketball. So he started to practice in basketball, and then he became really good. He came to the United States. He got a scholarship. He went to Texas. He played with the University of Arlington basketball on wheelchair. He became the star of the team, also the team leader. And that year they won the national championship. And he has a life that is fulfilled, and he's happy, and he has a job, and he has friends. And he taught us that we all face difficult things in life, but the end can be different. So I thought this is a story that needs to be told, because there are so many parents that when they get this news, they feel that this is it. And with support and with all of the resources that we have, there is a different story, and we can live that different story. So it is available on Amazon in English and Spanish.
Well, it's amazing. And if one of the listeners would like to read it, then we'll have a link to it on the show notes. And so it will be easy to get to it. And I totally agree with you that having a child with disability is for sure not on a parent wish list, and it takes some time to feel complete and process the idea of not having this perfect child that everyone and each of one of us wanted. However, there are a lot of quality when you see a child for whatever unique characteristic he has. And so I love your book because that's kind of a tragedy that the parents, I bet he wouldn't be where he's now without his parents' support. So I feel like this book is such an empowering book, both for parents and for kiddos. And my next question, talking about disabilities, what would be the first step when a parent realizes that there is some kind of challenge in school setting? What would you suggest the parent to do as a first step?
Well, there are steps. The first one for me is to talk to the doctor. And the doctor is going to probably give them that checklist. And then with checklist, the doctor will probably give you a referral to go to a specialist, speech pathology, or any psychiatric, or like any doctor that will help in that area. Then if the child qualifies, the child is going to need an evaluation. The system in the United States is divided in 0 to 3, and then from 3 to, I think it's 21. So from 0 to 3, we get what we call the early interventions, and then the services through them is separated from the other services. So the child is going to get an evaluation, and if they qualify for one of the disabilities, they will get services. And there are all kinds of services. You can have a line of people coming to your house for the different things that your child will need. And it doesn't depend on the severity of the disability. So you don't need to think, because it's just that the child is not talking, or no. If they need services, they're going to have services. And then when they reach 3 years old, they change to the other system that is through the school system. and then they can have all of the services through the school system.
Got it. So basically the first step is actually two of them. One is going privately to have the diagnosis, and then the other one is through the school system and district to have the evaluation going on and then get the service accordingly.
Yes.
Right? So it's two things that actually a parent can do. And so he can be supported privately, but also from the school district, which has no extra cost.
Exactly. That was what I was going to say. Like, you take them to your doctor, because the doctor is the one that is going to tell you, well, this is a specialist that we need. But once you have the referral and the evaluation, then you go to the system, because the services are very expensive. So if you go to the system, you're going to have all kind of services, like horse therapy or dog therapy. Like, there's many kind of therapies that are going to help your child succeed and reach their full potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're lucky to be in an era that there are so many interventions opportunities. It's not like a specific one that you can have. Like, it used to be only ABA therapy for people on the autism spectrum, but now there's much more opportunities to how to approach the kiddos in the way that really works for him. And I feel we are lucky as parents, and also those kiddos are really lucky to have that available for them. So I just encourage our listeners, don't get so stressed, and just know that there are many things that you can do for your child, and it will make your life and his life so much more fulfilling.
You know what? Also, I think it's super important to create that village, of that community of people that will be with you, that will help you, and make sure that, it will support you, not only with knowledge, because knowledge is power, but also with that emotional support, because you're going to be with people that probably went through the same things that you did. We, for example, don't have any child that is autistic, but I am in a WhatsApp group of families of autistic kids. And every time something happened, like my child is not eating, who knows, like a therapist, or who knows something that is working. And then I did this, it's a village. It is a village.
Yes, it's really helpful when you don't feel alone.
Exactly.
So just towards the end of our conversation, is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
Just make sure that you create that village, and you and I are part of that village. Make sure that what you read is supported and is from experts. Just enjoy your child. And these years are so beautiful. Enjoy this time. Like, don't stress too much. Find help and then enjoy those years.
I always think that I'm not going to regret the way I was parenting when I will be 60, 70, 80. So I see what you're saying. And thank you so much for taking the time and being with us and sharing your book and your expertise around kids' education. I really enjoyed it and I learned from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Tammy. I enjoy our conversation too.
We'll talk in Instagram. Bye. So thanks for joining us for another episode of the Playground Talks podcast. In the show notes, you can find the links to the children's milestones, link to Dr. Marisel book, and top featured episode of the Playground Talks podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing from you any feedback you have around this episode or the previous one. I'll see you in 2 weeks, and until then, as always, treat yourself and your kids with compassion and curiosity. Bye!